happens when you connect to your inner source, and that the most important way in which we want to help you grow is in community. So I'm going to let the group share some things they may have learned by being in communities. Yati has, I don't know, maybe 20 years in a community like Pachamama. Carla was a pioneer of building her own community of health around her book, trades of the thousands of people she coached, but also Ecovilla, she was a pioneer there. And now coming to Nosara to build the next generation of community. And what I want today to invite everyone is to take up the hat of your area of expertise. So less focused on what you know of breath work or metabolic health or vibrational healing, and ask this other question. If you want to be part of a community that starts in 2024, what elements would make such a community nourishing for all the people here? So with that, I'll let whoever wants to start, if maybe we can go a little bit in the order. We have here Ed, Naima, who may have a short time. Naima, can you hear us okay?
Hello, yes, I can. Hola, hola.
Hello. I know you may be short of time, so maybe we'll start with you, Naima. Do you want to share a bit of what you think are principles that help communities learn, thrive, and share gifts? I know that you've even written award-winning books on this for co-living communities. So why don't you start off with some of the ones you know and some of the ones you would love to see in the future?
Yeah, happy to, but sorry, just jumped in, missed the intro. Did you say anything else, or you just started?
No, I just said the following, Naima, that today we take up the hat of our area of expertise and we focus more on how we connect to our own source and our own gifts in community.
Yeah. Let's see. I think, yeah, for me, what really felt powerful in kind of the shared living community experiences was really the kind of embodied practices. Like, for example, circles. We did lots of sharing circles where, this kind of vulnerability-based trust. When we facilitated that, it created this sense of first feeling like we're not so alone in our like suffering craziness, right? It's like human connection. And once that was established, it just really enabled like this kind of more open sharing and like, oh, okay, you do this challenge. Well, I have these resources, or I can offer this to you. And then, when we were in like then having meals or, hanging out in the garden, kind of this more natural sharing would happen, but really a lot of this trust. It's like, if we look around in society today, like there's so little trust in politicians, right? In companies, neighbors, and ourselves, right? And so for me, that's a lot of where I feel like sharing and co-learning, the magic can happen when there is this sense of trust that is rebuilt, and then just creating spaces for it, like very dedicated, intentional spaces, like skill sharing, like talent shows, like giving people a space to shine where you might not have that opportunity normally, even if it's just, you have a microphone, okay, who wants to come and like share a poem or a song, or, como atreverse, like just being this like safe, non-judgmental space for people to show up, to share, that can really enable learning. And then finally, just something else that's come up that really works well is like around meals, and just inviting people to share what do they know. Like I remember with you, Pablo, like, what do you know about nutrition or avocados? What nutritional elements do avocados have? And everyone shares about that. It can be any so those are just things off the top of my head that come up now, but happy to keep it.
Great. So I'm gonna volunteer you, Naima, for the near future to maybe share a design of circles. I know you've held many circles, and I know you've learned from the Plum Village and other very, very incredible ancestral wisdom that comes from thousands of years of Buddhism to the modern age. And so this is not a heavy ask. Just means maybe in the next couple of weeks, uh, we can see examples for circles. And the second thing I just want to say is I'm very grateful for what you did at the last time we did a co-living hosted by you, because you gave a lot of trust and allowed me to start teaching things that I used to have as only private practices. I had 20 years of doing Qigong, but then you're like, Pablo, you want to teach Qigong every morning. And then when you teach people every morning, it transforms. And the same with the ice bath, that I had it as a personal practice. So one thing that's emerging in my awareness, and I'll keep this flowing in the group, uh, a future gathering where many of us come together in that very vulnerable from circle, not from expertise to share. So that was helpful. Thank you. Thank you for setting us up well. Who would like to go next? Maybe Carla?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, how are you? I really liked what Naima said about community, because for me, community is a space in which you can be yourself. Whenever there is the intention, because communities are self-formed. It's like it takes time, it takes connection, it takes creating that space for that. But whenever your intention is there, then it's like transiting into a space in which you can be you, and you can just like take a mask out, and you start like in a family, because we don't choose our families, we don't choose our parents or siblings. But whenever the communities have a beautiful thing, which is that they function synchronicity and through frequency. So most of the times when being part of the community, it's because something took me to that community, because there was a resonance in the frequency, in the vibration, in the energy that we were all sharing. So whenever you tap into that field of frequency, then the communication gets very beautiful. And it doesn't mean that you are happy all the time or celebrate, but it means that you can address what other is going through. And sometimes the communities that I've lived in, it's beautiful to see how people literally stop doing what's important for me for putting first what's important for us or what's important for you. Like there is an emergency, there is like a broken arm. So there is a chat, and then 10 people is there like helping with the broken arm, which something that wouldn't happen in a regular society, which is not a community, because you're not, maybe you would call your dad or your sister to help you, but if you call the community and you open yourself to ask for, then the people is there, and that is beautiful. Like to feel part of something bigger that is sustaining you and supporting you. It's super beautiful. And I think that community living is the most beautiful way to stop the self-indulgence. We are so self-indulgent. But whenever you live in a community, you mirror each other, and you see the other one celebrating, and you want to celebrate. You see the other one thriving, and it gets contagious. So there is a time in which you start celebrating the success of everyone, because at the end, we're not separated. This is not the duality or the illusion that we live in a duality. Community is the representation of the unity, and these fields of frequency that we are all tapping in. So whenever one is happy, it's just contagious. I would love to, like in community, you feel the freedom of dancing just because of the pleasure of dancing, without any agenda or any purpose or any, like anything. Just like, let's dance for the pleasure of dance. So you start like exploring with things that go beyond your duality and going to unity. And I think that community is the way to reduce that burden between people. And really, I've always believed that the community is the answer to all the challenges in the world, because if you create a community, then you create this concept that there is something that exists that is better than the establishment, which is just thinking about me, my family, my money, and my thing. And this is contagious. So I think that communities are like totally the way to thrive as a person. And my experience has been that.
A quick question, Carla,
Yes.
and without going too far. I know you've also built communities of people that are not who you were living with in, say, Covilla or here in Nosara. Hundreds, maybe thousands of women that went to your retreats, did your book. What did you learn from that way of doing community?
Wow, it is so beautiful because you are just sharing without knowing who is receiving what you're sharing. And suddenly you find out that, well, I'll tell this story because it's beautiful, and it has to do with community. One day we were in Playa Hermosa, my son and I, and we were like just hanging on the beach. He was outside the waves, not surfing. And suddenly he sees a guy, a surfer, that it's drowning, like literally it's drowning. And there is this girl running to take him out of the water. And then he helps her. And then there's 5 people taking this guy out of the water. I'm running there, calling the 911. The guy is purple, everyone is assisting him. And when I reach there and the ambulance come, the girlfriend just like crying and shouting, please breathe, please breathe. And then the guy starts breathing like that he's in coma. And suddenly I just hug her. Like I put my hand on her back because she was with him. And then she turns her head and she said, Carla, you're Carla. And I'm like, yes, I am Carla. And she goes like, I know you. I know you because I read your book and I heard about you from my friend Zephyr. And in that moment, and she was like, thank you for here, crying, trying to save his boyfriend, like that was drowned in front of her. So in that moment, I hugged her and I felt the power of community, because whenever you create the intention of sharing your life with vulnerability, as Naima said, you are creating a community just by doing that without knowing it. And suddenly you jump into someone that is part of your community and you didn't even know that existed. So that's a beautiful, beautiful thing, because the community is something that it's non-visible, it's invisible, but it's even more strong than something that you can see. And right there I said, wow, everything that I have done, it has been received by someone, and that is community. So if we do it consciously and not unconsciously, then that whole game changes, right?
Thank
I think,
you.
yeah. No, thank you.
Beautiful and powerful. And, one of the things that we're going for in Thrive Beyond is to touch lives like that. I always said one of the things I want to break from is the idea of just a retreat. We want to accompany people in a bigger sense, before, during, and after, so they also feel kind of community. And this story you share, like, is very touching because it's like an act of faith. like so you come with a lot of presence, and also you realize that many of us may touch people. Maybe they go to the sun, or maybe they go to the spirit, but it's less a single place, and it's a field of sharing. So with that, let me pass it in case she's able to speak. Mishi, I know that you have worked with kind of community that brings ancestral wisdom from Colombia and the plants to the world. And maybe you can share something that you've learned of community from there. Okay, I'm not sure if she's fully connected. So while we let her maybe come in with that, uh, Yati, do you want to share a little bit of what you've learned? I know you're part of several communities, not just Pachamama, not just the WIM of instructors.
Yeah. First, it's a real pleasure to hear all the observation about the community and how other people see it. And I feel here as a community also because we are carrying the mindset of openness and safety. When a community is flourishing, it's a fertile ground for growth and for personal growth and communal growth and love and thriving. When the community is going to different roads, there is also dark sides of which is not thriving, and it's a destruction. In my life for 20 years, I've seen both. That's why I'm careful also how, because there is two sides to that. And with the sharing, I feel more sticking into the bright side, because the bright side is it's a very fertile ground for growth. And when growth can happen very fast, because we can reflect with each other, we can love, we can take care of each other, and everything can happen very fast. And also to feel the support. So it's a great, great gift to live in a community. 6 years ago, I thought to go back to live in Nosara and live Pachamama community. And I examined it very clearly. And I saw that I can never have what I have in this community here. So I decided to stay in Pachamama, and I'm very happy for that. Pachamama community, we've tried many different ways of communication, of sharing, and we explore many different methods. I think the most important thing is safety. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable and to be appreciated and to share ourselves like what we are doing in this moment, we are taking the first step for growth into the unknown, into something beautiful that we are going into the unknown and co-creating together. I think with that, it's going to be enough, my sharing about community. If anybody else would like to share, please.
Thanks. I think she was trying to unmute, and I don't know if she managed. Let her come in if she can. But just I'll go through. I see George on video, and I'd love for you to share whatever comes up, George. But I'll tell you one thing I observed. On my first visit to the Center of Joy, I had a sense that the key people working there with you were not just, let's say, an org chart of people having functions. I felt the quality of love and trust very high. And it's very beautiful because often, sadly, where it's sometimes harder to get this community feeling is when you have fixed roles at work. So I'd love to share whatever comes up to you, George, but also if you can share a little bit of what do you think has allowed you guys to have this kind of interaction, like almost like a family community at Center of Joy.
Yeah. Well, I have almost 2 years working in the Center of Joy. I had the opportunity to meet different kind of treats that who comes for meditation retreats, boot camps, and it's really nice because they always feel comfortable and safe in our place. And our philosophy is by touching one life at a time. And it's like offering this service, making people feel safe and comfortable where they can open themselves to whatever they're looking for. It's not only the physical way, because that's what I shared there, my physical manual therapy. It's also how I can connect with them and they open themselves um, to explain me what they are looking for. I have the other practitioners there, so it's like a big group, and we are working all together. And if I'm not able to help them in some way, I can send them to the other practitioner. Um, and it's really nice because it's the holistic way that we are always trying to help the people, not only in the physical, in my opportunity to do it is more than the spiritual, and even with the nutrition. um right now we are working in the boot camp, and it's for a special group that they are coming here, people who had experiences last year, and they comes here and feel comfortable with the old people uh, in synchrony, synchronia, because they're having, or they are, yeah, they are having different experiences, so they comes with a open heart to expose themselves and feel compassion for the other people. And it's a way to see we're all having, or we're all having, or passing through many things. Um, it's where people feel comfortable to feel vulnerable. Um, and yeah, um, that's basically the way I've been connecting with people. And I'm also receiving retreats like for the third time. So it's people that I already know. And maybe it's in the first time they came into the retreat, I only talked with them one time, but I always try to do it and doing my best at this moment. Um, and the other two times we get closer, they comes to me, and sometimes people tell me how like something I said in some ice bath ceremony, for example, how they are applying this. And it's I feel grateful to being able to touch their lives in this way. And also I'm learning from them. Uh, they comes, and even when they are not practitioners or they are just enjoying the retreat, some people just come and say some important thing that I can also apply in my life. So that's in the last 2 years, I've been creating like many friends from many places and learning and trying to share my things.
Thank you. No, and I felt that very much from the first time. You remember when I arrived, I just got this sense because I saw you celebrate being done to. It's great. Sometimes places that win awards because they're like the top facilities. They forget that it's a human vulnerability, and I think the synchronicity. And it's like an act of faith, and I think that's where the trust comes. It's actually not just on the skills. Like someone could have the same, let's say, technical skills, but not allow people to feel fully seen. I'll pass it if you can talk. I don't know, Picara, if you're able to unmute, but we've discussed before how some communities also that you've been part of, like maybe on the Sufi chant and stuff, like go through this interesting balance between having a shared practice but not overscaling, and but anything that will come to you on what do you feel you've learned or want to invoke in the future for a community like the one we're trying to cultivate here. We're able to tune in to that vulnerability, openness, also the abundance and mindset of sharing gifts, and anything on that line. So let us know, Picara.
Yes, thank you. It's been wonderful hearing everyone sharing. I did want to speak to what Yeti said about how some communities can be excellent for thriving, and some communities have not. They've been destructive. I've experienced that as well. I've been involved in some very long-term communities, 10 years or longer. Some of them are more in person, and some are more remote. And I think some things that work very well is when the intention of the group is clear, that the values of the community have been spoken and are shared, and that there's a certain level of skill and ability with our tools to be able to take self-responsibility, be loving, right? Be honest as best as we can. And I think that leadership makes a difference, because and leadership not being dictatorship, right? But that there are people that are talented and skilled at holding space, people that are talented and skilled at helping to promote that positivity, right? I think Carla was saying, like, it's contagious. The positivity is contagious, but the negativity can also be contagious. So having the right people who can hold those pillars of our values and really feed that energy in the right way has been, in my experience, what really helps these communities to grow, and helping to bring out the best in each person, their unique abilities and skills, and honoring that and bringing that out. And when there's difficulties, knowing how to develop a way of holding space for each other, and understanding that anything that goes on within the community for anyone, there's something for all to learn from it. So I think the space holding has been one of the biggest skills that I've learned through the years of how to hold a group. And I think that understanding all of our interconnectedness in a group and how to do that for each other is so powerful, even in communities that were purely virtual. If I reached out to the community and said, I need support, I could feel the energy of the whole group supporting me. I think that we can heal and grow and evolve so much more quickly and effectively in a group if we have those healthy aspects in place. So I think that that's my interest in this group, is that I do see the power of community being so many multi-layered. But as a healer, that's definitely an area that I appreciate, that healthy community can bring us deeper into our own healing and help us heal each other. And the more healed the community is, then the greater impact we're having on the world.
Thank you. It's very strong. And I think the holding space, as you say, Picara, can be done in a way that's not hierarchical or positional, but very intentional. And you said one phrase that just made a super strong click in my heart, which is that whatever arises to any member, there's a learning for everyone. And I think that stance, it's just such a simple help, because, like, of course things will arise and therefore healing. So it's very beautiful. I'll pass it briefly, Fernanda, if you want to share something on what you've sensed from communities.
Yes, absolutely. Well, to me, it's very important, that sense of community, especially because I'm a mom, and I have come to realize also that connecting with other parents can be very powerful, because sometimes right now, especially like in the days that we're living, with so much things like technology and the kids having access to a lot of source of information, we as parents sometimes, right? But I have learned something from communities, and it's like you don't have to parent alone. If you find like the right people that is in the path of, raising your children in a conscious way, it can be very beautiful and it can be very powerful, to share things that happen on your daily basis, and how to deal with certain things, um, that with parenting, right? And how can we be more conscious, about ourselves, and also how do we observe ourselves, um, parenting or children, how is that sometimes our behavior or belief can be projected into our children's life and things like that. So sharing these things and feeling the empathy from other parents, also saying like, hey, I've been feeling this way as well, can be very, very healing, very powerful. Like you feel like you're not alone in this path, right? Um, and yeah, to me, definitely, community, is very powerful. We can learn from each other. This very genuine sense of, um, people understanding you. It's, yeah, to me, it's amazing. So I want to share that.
And I wanted to highlight, Fernanda, one thing that I feel the blue zones had as a memory of almost all ancestral wisdom has a very beautiful intergenerational sharing. Like it's a very recent Western thing where like 22-year-olds meet 22-year-olds and 35-year-olds. And I remember one of the times we were doing ice bath and sound and stuff, and you brought your son. And not only did he not get confused, he picked up the harmonica, starting improvising shamanically, so and that's because you clearly have developed a very beautiful way of relating with him. We felt very comfortable being with people 30 years older, 40 years older, and not just like he was a big part of making that a beautiful thing. And I want to highlight because I think you work a lot with children, trying to bring them mindfulness tools, which of course are very important. But I think the other thing that I've seen you do as a mother that's very beautiful is is the kind of way in which your son is able to fully show up and open up, co-create, explore. And I have a sense that if we kind of help thriving, the only way is for everyone to be thriving and kind of all at once. It's not like now your mom will thrive and then like you go to the school. We have this very outdated model. So I wanna highlight how fun and happy. And I got very inspired actually about trying then some other things in the harmonic after he did. So that was very beautiful. Let me pass it then to Julia, you that are also not only actively say looking at the community of Pachamama from a lens of explaining it open to others, but also very directly kind of supporting this community that we're building. So what are you sensing? What else would you love to see happen? Just tell us what's coming up.
For me, I live in Pachamama for over 6 years, and it's my first community experience, like living in the community. I don't think I didn't know that stuff like this exists at all. But also, like what I remember my grandparents always talking about how everything now is everyone is so individualistic. Everyone has their own car, their own little flat, living separate. Everybody has their own thing, and how they, when they were young, they were after war also, like everyone was poor, but also they were sharing. There was so much co-living and sharing space and cooking together, eating together. It's like so much together and celebrating everything together. And like I didn't grow up like this already. People had their own things. And then I've lived in big cities. So I had no clue. When people talk about community, I just like actually don't understand what exactly people were talking about. So when I came here to Pachamama, I was like so many things like triggered, angry, like not everything that I want, kind of like what's that? I can just go and do my own thing and I can buy my own thing. And so it took me a few years to understand. But once I got it, I was like, oh my gosh, this mindset, like I think Carla is not here right now, but yeah, I really liked what she said because that's something that I even wrote a poem to Pachamama once because that one thing that Carla mentioned, I totally agree about. Stop thinking about like me and thinking what's best for community. And so many times, like I had to uh, make that decision, not what's best for me, but I'm like, actually, like, yeah, what's best. And so I think when you have some kind of expectations or dependencies on community, that's how you can become bitter and some things may not work for you. But if you think what's best for community, like what's best for this to continue, what can I do? Not to thinking out of it. So that was my biggest growth for me. It's really, yeah, I feel also like, yeah, because when I lived in London, there was like many decisions I was making, like I only realized now out of fear, like being alone. And also even honestly, like it feels like many people decide to have child because they are scared to be alone when they get older and they decide to be in a partnership, they're scared to be alone. So when you're in a community, I don't have that fear anymore. If I'm going to decide to be with someone in a relationship, it's because I really be with that person, but I don't need anybody. I'm great. Just because I have everything. This is my family. These are my friends. I can work here. I can have fun here. I feel it's like it is part of the blue zone, this feeling of belonging and sense of this like not blood family. I don't need blood family. Like they are also my family. And Kara, so much I agree on what you mentioned about that community needs to have clear, like to have clear values, and you need to resonate with them. And I feel also that it might change over time. Even within community, I see there are tiny sub communities, and then there are different values. And somehow, when suddenly I'm like, wait, do I want to be part of that? I don't think that's actually where I want to go. So it's like always checking in. Is it still resonating with what I am? So yeah, it feels like this community that we are creating. I'm so glad so many people joined. This is the highest turnout, by the way, I think. And this is super important. Not everyone can always join, it's okay, but I feel it's just so important that every now and again we all join and we feel there is something happening and there is some kind of growth and there is shared purpose and value. We all going somewhere. There's something that connects us, this thread. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that. That's my take.
Great, Julia. And then I'll pass this along. And today we also have like a practical sharing, but I think given the beauty of this conversation, we'll send it to people online and they can do it on their own. Because what I would like to do for the next 7 minutes is tune into this. One of the ways in which I try to be what wants to emerge and to connect to synchronicities is to try to taste the future from the future. Because I mean, it is pretty obvious when you think that it's kind of hard to do something very different if we just use the same mental patterns of the past. But then the question often is like, okay, what is the other alternative? And I think I am lucky that almost all of us here have some kind of meditation or mindfulness practice to access something beyond the thinking mind. So in an invitation for everyone here to tune into that place, whether you call it loving awareness or consciousness or pure being or grand mysterium, something where you just let thoughts rise and come down and feelings come in. I just want to use the collective intuition of the group for the next couple of minutes to say, if over the next months we have found principles that really worked well. Let's say for a moment, imagine is summer of 2025. And then we have many of us maybe already worked together. You can imagine maybe we did something beautiful at Center of Joy and something beautiful in Osara. And we have accompanied some great human beings on 9 and 12-month processes of transformation. Results are growing. Try to taste not from planning, but almost from remembering. Like that we're in the summer of 2025 and we're like, wow, I'm so glad that in the end of 2024, we brought these principles to the Thrive Beyond community. So I'm asking for an answer that's pretty simple and sacred. Because if it's very complicated, it's not that. Maybe we did some circles. Maybe we hosted something together. Maybe we asked and learned for more vulnerability rather than just sharing our gifts. Maybe we're sharing challenges and we found ways to each other. I don't know. So I'm just going to let it marinate in the group for just a little bit. And anyone who has something come up, just unmute and share. Is it that what seeds were planted in late 2024 for us to by summer 2025 feel like the space we developed for sharing was a good ally for thriving. And you can also include what did we avoid? As Pikara and Yati said, what did we avoid to not become a dark community?
It feels to me, I can say something. It feels to me that we need to have one shared vision. There should be a vision. Without it, maybe it'd be difficult to, I don't know, commit it for some people. There should be some kind of vision or purpose, like why, and so that this comes to me. What do you think, Pablo?
I think shared vision makes a lot of sense, but in my language, I would say the vision may be quite open, which is like the vision can be of thriving, but the vision doesn't need to be of a particular format of thriving. Out of the second thing that did come up, I do think like shared vision, and I think we can have something like principles that we share. But I think one of the things that we would have done, in addition to maybe find synchronistic collaborations, is to feel we can come with a challenge here and feel supported. I mean, I think right now it's too early for that. But I think if we tune this well, it is maybe not the biggest challenge or the most difficult, because I don't want to oversell what we can do. I'm saying like an honest question. I do think we could, over a few months, start to feel like it also allows for that, in addition to like shared learnings and shared gifts.
I think one of the things that has been helpful in other groups I've been in is, just going for support. So reaching to a group that you're involved in, I'm working on X, Y, or Z. Can you send me support? And the reason I say that is because it's an early way to start building trust, where it's also reminds us like we're not here to solve each other's problems necessarily. We're here to support each other. And so by starting to just take those initial steps of reaching out to say, hey, you know, I'm going through this thing and I would love your support. You know, and then having people just say, you know, I'm here for you. I have your back. I send you support. I send you love. Can be, I find a nice way to entry into that as we're getting to know each other. It's a nice way to start to build small amounts of trust that these people have my best interests at heart. You know, before getting into like bigger questions that we might be asking each other. So that's just something that's worked well in the past for my groups. And then also having a certain set of guidelines about, you know, because I think that you actually can have more freedom when you have clear guidelines. So when there's some sense of like these are the broad general rules in which we want to interact, it gives people a sense of what's appropriate, and it also gives people a deeper sense of those values. So it's like, oh, we're a group where you can reach out for support like that, or we're a group where, you know, we believe that, you know, giving each other information is part of this, or, you know, whatever it is. So that might be something to consider too, is what do we accept and not accept within this community, you know, on a very broad level. But I think that gives people safety as well to know, well, we've agreed that this is how we function here. And then people can feel more free to be more vulnerable because they've got a container that's clear. Just some things to think about, perhaps.
This resonates 100%. So I'll I'll process a little bit of this, as you know, like as Kathy, you and I kind of got initially started, and I brought sort of an extra group of people. I feel that the good next step is to tune in over the next couple of weeks, exactly in those principles of relating, you know, what's acceptable, what not, those kind of things. Because I agree, you put more clarity, in fact, you give people more freedom. When it's so open, it almost, people don't even know how to engage. When you say like, okay, this group is good, accepts this not for that, it's not to maybe sell the thing. And I think the second is to, over the next short amount of weeks, in addition to some of the prompts we've started just to sense where people are in a practice or sharing, find a practical way to let people know and confirm enough of us would be, it doesn't mean everyone
Pablo, your internet is cutting a little bit. The internet is unstable.
Ready for any, but for some people who would say, yeah, we're open to hear some people who have here.
Pablo, we can't hear
I'll
you.
say,
Last
and
3 minutes, maybe.
Okay.
Okay. So I think we reached to the end of this meeting. Thank you, everybody. It's really, I feel my heart warm.
Can you see what I wrote?
With all the connection. Yes, 2 next steps.
Two next steps. The principles and a way to open to support.
Good. Beautiful. So good evening, everybody. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.